Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The end is very nearly nigh. The two candidates have their rallies tonight at midnight, and they haven't yet given up travelling across the country, crisscrossing it in every direction. But the swing states that could vote either way, 41 million people out of an eligible 200 million voters have already voted, but tomorrow is D-Day. That is the day when the majority will vote. So tonight, this is the state of the race. Hillary Clinton has a narrow lead. The national poll average compiled by Real Clear Politics has her on 47.2% and Donald Trump on 44.2%. But to win the White House, a candidate does need 270 electoral college votes based on the popular vote in the 50 states. In current projections, the polling analysts 538 give Hillary a winning 294 against Donald Trump's 242. But a word of warning, all the polls are within the margin of error, and this race is not over by any means. Most states are either firmly Democrat blue or Republican red. There are 13 so-called purple battleground states where the election is being fiercely fought. Tonight, we're in Pennsylvania, where 20 electoral college votes are up for grabs. Hillary Clinton stands on 46% there, with Donald Trump on 43.6%. And we're in Florida. This state returns 29 electoral college votes. It's virtually neck and neck today. Hillary has a very slim lead on 46.9%, with Donald Trump on 46.7%. For the two campaigns, all their key messages have now been given. Now it's all about getting the vote out. Let's join our Washington correspondent, Kylie Morris, who's in the state of Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, the city that gave birth to the American Constitution. Kylie.
John, it's a sign of how strange and unpredictable this election has been, that here we are one day before the vote, and Hillary Clinton is campaigning in Michigan and Pennsylvania, two states that should be considered soundly Democratic. So she's campaigning. She has spent 19 months virtually on the road, spent more than $550 million, and she's still trying to lock down states that really should have been hers. Now, of course, she has dealt with a very unpredictable opponent, but in the past few weeks, it's the FBI that has destabilized her, kind of built on a tendency of some Americans to distrust her, and also on her self-acknowledged failure, her mistake in using that private email server. She really suffered a blow in the polls. Her polls plummeted 10 days ago when the FBI announced that it was looking again at 650,000 emails. Then only yesterday, the FBI director comes out and says, actually, there was nothing in them, nothing to worry about, let's move on. For Hillary Clinton's campaign, things could not be more tense. With one day to go, it came down to this. Clinton staffers on the campaign plane huddled around aide Nick Merrill as he read from his phone the declaration from the FBI director that, after all, the new emails had turned up nothing of concern. His conclusion remains the same, he wrote, as that he reached in July. Hillary Clinton was careless but not criminal. She need face no charges.
We have seen Director Comey's latest letter to the Hill. We're glad to see that that he has found, as we were confident that he would, that he has confirmed the conclusions that he really reached in July, and we're glad that this matter is resolved.
Hey, have you heard the news from the FBI? They found nothing in the emails. Seriously?
We're not surprised. This isn't a joke.
This isn't a joke. This just happened. Democrats all across America were learning about Jim Comey's second intervention.
Yes. Wonderful. It's wonderful news. We are thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
For some, though, anger swiftly followed any sense of relief. What do you think of the role the FBI played?
It's illegal. It's not. It shouldn't have been allowed. Comey should resign right now.
The FBI director is now a poster child for everything wrong with America's institutions. By reviving the email investigation 10 days ago, he infuriated Democrats but delighted Republicans. Now he's done the reverse. But how many votes did it cost the Hillary campaign along the way?
Our concerns are Rust Belt states, Michigan, Wisconsin, because those are the states where it might have shifted, and we fear they're the Brexit states.
As for Donald Trump, who revels at every rally and the crowd chanting, "Lock her up, lock her up," well, he quickly rewrote his riff on the FBI. Before Clinton's all clear, this was his line.
I have great respect for the fact that the FBI and the Department of Justice are now willing to have the courage to right the horrible mistake that they made.
But yesterday, his great respect was clearly diminished.
Right now, she is being protected by a rigged system. It's a totally rigged system. I've been saying it for a long time. You can't review 650,000 new emails in 8 days. You can't do it, folks. Hillary Clinton is guilty. She knows it. The FBI knows it. The people know it. And now it's up to the American people to deliver justice at the ballot box.
The more inconsistent Trump seems, the better it plays for the Democrats.
They had so little confidence in his self-control, they said, we're just going to take away your Twitter.
His critic-in-chief, President Obama, delighted in the idea Trump's campaign team had reached for the parental controls.
If somebody can't handle a Twitter account, they can't handle the nuclear codes.
A short time ago, Mrs. Clinton fielded questions on the tarmac, deliberately sounding less like a candidate, more like a president.
I think I have something to do to bring the country together. As I've been saying in these speeches in those few days, I really do want to be the president for everybody.
I want to be a president for all Americans, not just those who support me in this election, for everyone.
The time for closing arguments has come. Now, America must make its choice. So Hillary Clinton there sounding like a president, trying to switch modes from candidate into president. But I think what you can hear is the effort that she is making to propose the idea that she in the White House will be able to heal the nation after this bad-tempered and divisive campaign. And we've used the term divisive a lot in talking about this campaign, but to give you some indication of what that feels like as an individual, I spoke to a Hillary Clinton voter this week who said that she was too frightened to put a yard sign in her front garden that said Clinton in case it caused arguments with her neighbours. Normally this is something that you do around a presidential election here. It's part of the excitement, declaring your hand, being willing to engage and talk with people on the other side of the aisle about politics. That has not happened this election, and whoever wins the White House will have quite a deal to sort out and will have a lot of healing to do. Now it's back to you, John, in Washington.
Kylie Morris in Philadelphia. Now, it's the swing state which both Republicans and Democrats acknowledge could determine who reaches this White House behind me. Florida. It has a huge number of Hispanic voters, and over 500,000 of them have already cast their ballot, an unprecedented number. Now, Hillary Clinton's campaign believe that could give her the state. Matt Fry is outside her rival's Florida residence, Mar-a-Lago. Now, Matt.
Well, John, this is indeed Donald Trump's summer White House, as he described it. If he gets elected, it's a 54-bedroom Uber mansion, lots of gold, lots of mirrors, big chandeliers. And it is from here that he will either run the country for half the year or indeed send angry tweets if he is not elected. This will become his political elbow, his place of exile, from which he will plot some sort of revenge or perhaps a quiet retirement. Who knows at this stage? The point is that what that building becomes at the end of the day depends in large part on the 6.2 million Latino voters in this state who've already voted. Watch. There is something shrill about the bells of St. John Bosco in Miami. If this election is about the battle between fear and anger, this is the fear crowd. They belong to what is already America's biggest minority. 62 million people, roughly the size of Britain. And whether they're from Mexico, Cuba or Venezuela, they are citizens of the USA, united by a common language and, thanks to Donald Trump's rhetoric, by a common fear. that if he wins, they'll be treated like second-class citizens in their own country. After church at the busy flea market next door, I meet Doris, a cleaner. Born in Nicaragua, she's afraid of Trump, and she's just voted for the first time.
Yo soy ciudadana, pero con mucho orgullo soy inmigrante.
She's a citizen of the United States, but she's also an immigrant, and that puts her in a tricky position. But she's used her rights as a citizen to vote, and to vote against Trump, to vote for Hillary Clinton. Doris, muchas gracias. Many here fled a whole host of Latin American countries to avoid being ruled by caudillos or strong men, only to find one running for office here. Carolina is a US citizen from Venezuela.
It's the way that he expresses himself when he's on camera, when he's giving those speeches, the way the words that he used when he describes immigrants in this country. So that brings a lot of
unacceptable to you?
It is.
Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down, please. You weren't called.
That was Trump at one of his press conferences, getting a persistent reporter thrown out for asking a difficult question about the candidate's plan to deport 11 million illegal migrants. The reporter was eventually allowed back in.
Now, if they come from Mexico, do you mind if I send them back to Mexico? No, do you mind if I send them back to Mexico? Okay, those people are out. They're going to be out so fast your head will spin, all right?
Not all right. The trouble for Trump was that he picked that fight with anchorman Jorge Ramos, one of the superstars of America's Latino community. Born in Mexico, US citizen, household name. It strikes me as if the Latino community is voting existentially here. This is about their future in this country.
Absolutely. And what they are saying is, Mr. Trump, you offended us. This is how we're going to react. Our vote is our power, it's our voice. Okay, so you called us criminals and rapists. We're going to show you our power and what we really mean. And that's exactly what we've been seeing in Nevada, in North Carolina, here in Florida.
What happens if he wins and Hillary Clinton loses?
If he wins, it is a nightmare for the Latino community. Remember, he promised to deport 11 million people in 2 years. He would have to deport 15,000 immigrants every single day.
He's not going to do that, is he?
Filling up 3747s every single day.
This primal fear has already driven Latinos to the early polls in astonishing numbers, up 160% in Florida compared to last time. But there is another fear driving another crowd to the polls. The fear of losing your weapon. Or weapons if you happen to be at Florida's biggest gun show. Thousands packed into a hangar big enough to park a jumbo jet. The numbers were even higher than usual because of the election. Here you can tool up as if you're going for private war, as long as you pass the basic background checks. I, for one, have never seen or heard anything like it. Why is it so busy now?
Because people are scared because of the election. They think
what
that
are they scared of?
They think if Hillary wins that she's going to trounce our Second Amendment rights. And while she says that she's all for the Second Amendment, she's not.
If you like guns, you vote for Trump.
It's that simple?
It's that simple.
What are people afraid of?
She's very unpredictable. She's a career politician and she's very corrupt.
So to you, the gun that you've got there is more important than the idea of the first female president of the United States?
Of course.
So we always teach them at home that you point down, right? You don't point at something unless you want to hurt it, unless it's a bad guy, right?
And that's the problem with this election. Too many bad guys and too much bad faith, pitting America's tribes against each other. Good luck with the result and what happens next. Now, of course, Donald Trump hopes that more gun sales will translate into more votes for him. And he was actually just up the road, about 2 hours drive from here, in a place called Sarasota, and gave a very big, enthusiastic rally to almost 5,000 people in a sort of airport hangar, where he talked once again about the rigged system and crooked Hillary, but also, oddly enough, having described the FBI last week as heroes, they're now, again, zeros. But here's the really important point about Florida and about Latinos in America as a whole. In 2004, Bush won the election with 44% of the Latino vote. McCain lost it in 2008 with 31%. Romney, a Republican, lost the election 4 years ago with 27%, and Donald Trump currently polling amongst Latinos with about 18-19%. In other words, unless you're nice to the Hispanic population of the United States of America, you will never get to call this place behind me the second White House. Back to you, John.
Matt Fry, in the most pivotal state in the Union because it's so finely balanced. From the hacking of Democratic National Committee emails to Hillary Clinton, accusing Donald Trump of being the puppet of President Putin, Russia has played an outsized role in the US election. Our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson, joins us live from Moscow. Alex.
Yes, John, long, so long, bitter, divisive, that word again, but with the added flavour of regular discussions, quite seriously, of the possibility of nuclear war. That's a flavour, if you like, of how this huge country has been following the United States marathon. Now, whereas if the polls are anything to go by tonight in the US, it's all too close to call, as they say there. Over here in Russia, that does not apply at all. The vast majority of Russians are quite clear, it seems. They want Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. So what is it about Donald Trump that appeals to Russians? Or to flip it, what is it about Hillary Clinton that puts so many of them off? Is it simply her years at the State Department and the perception here that she is a true hawk when it comes to Russia? Well, we've been out and about trying to find out for you. It's minus 12 degrees, a blizzard, but it's training night even so for the Moscow United American football team. Young Russians all too aware that the US election has got them caught up even here in a propaganda war between East and West.
The Russia is the most interesting topic for any politics in America. If you would like to say something, say about Russia, what do you think about Putin or its foreign affairs, about the Syria, about Ukraine?
So they sense anti-Russian propaganda in the West, but they also see it right here at home as well.
If you listen to Russian politics, they're using the same. They're using America, you know, to accuse about anything, you know, with Syria. Putin always accusing the United States of something. So I think it's not right from our side and from their side. You know, we should calm down and shake our hands and be friends again.
Across town and superficially, it's a bit more comfortable. Sergei Brylyov, one of Russia's leading news presenters, getting ready to go on air. But here too, things are pretty rough. He tells us there's an information war going on and it is dangerous.
I hope that in 10-15 years' time we'll be looking back at today and laughing. Because I think our two countries, and East and West in general, do not deserve what we have today. This is not common sense.
So, you thought the US election was ugly in America? Well, try it in Moscow. Here's the leader of Russia's third biggest political party laying into Hillary Clinton.
She's going to hit the nuclear button, and there will be nothing left of you.
Even away from a TV studio, he is no less angry about Clinton.
Don't be the President of the United States of America. Why not? Long live Donald Trump. He will be the President of the United States of America.
But Zhirinovsky is far from alone across the channels. Night after night, it's Clinton the hawk, Clinton the threat. One of Russia's regular weather presenters does bulletins on the effects of nuclear war. Just a few hours ago, a parody pro-Kremlin account on Twitter had this. So just why is it that Russia seems to be embracing Trump and rejecting Clinton?
I would imagine that, yes, maybe his haircut, his style, your fight, that sort of thing, rings a bell with the Russian mentality. But basically speaking, I think it's not so much about the Russians being pro-Trump. They're more anti-Clinton, because Clinton has got a reputation in this country.
Putin's Russia, Lenin one side of the road, Lamborghini the other. So we took to Moscow streets to bring the US election to the people. Do Russians really adore Donald and abhor Hillary? One ballot box, 100 voting slips, Clinton or Trump. No Clinton.
She's disgusting. I hate her. She said that she would smash Russia the way she did Libya. We'll be turned into a desert.
Trump. Make America great again.
Make America great again. That's what the man says.
What about Trump?
This man is good for me. I like.
You like?
Yeah.
Come on. Spasiba. Clinton and Clinton. The turnout was brisk and enthusiastic. The result, 71 votes for Trump, 24 for Clinton. Well, that's hardly a scientific survey, but it was interesting the numbers of people who came up to us and said, look, I feel how I do about Hillary Clinton because of what I've seen on the TV news. One main bulletin here in Russia just last night spent more than 15 minutes criticising Hillary Clinton and just over 1 minute attacking Donald Trump. And that is a very established pattern across this country. Back at the football practice, look at these young Russians, educated, outward looking. For them, the Cold War is ancient history, and they're baffled by the increasing tensions and propaganda swirling around them. As Sasha says, I just want to get on with the game.
It's not for me, or a politician, or this. I just want to play football. I don't want to think about this.
Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News, Moscow.
Well, joining us now from Phoenix, Arizona, is Ruben Gallego, who is a Democrat congressman. We'll be talking to him in a moment. But with me first is Jim Woolsey, former director of the CIA under Bill Clinton, but who is now advising Donald Trump on national security issues. Let me start first with Russia. I mean, the claim has been made that at least a third of the social network activity about the Trump campaign has actually been fed by Russia. Does that disturb you?
I don't know if it's true or not, but it would not be incompatible with the way the Russians operate in this area. They have a program, massive program they call disinformatia, disinformation. And they, even before the world of social networks and so forth, they were very active in deceptive communications and leaks and all that. And I see no reason to suspect that they wouldn't be this time, but I don't know that they are.
So we get to Mr. Trump's relationship with Russia, and he's clearly, well, some have called it cozy with the idea of Mr. Putin. He's been nice about it.
He's been cordial. Sometimes you have to be cordial to people that you're not wildly enthusiastic about in diplomacy. The United States and Britain were the close ally of Joseph Stalin in that from 41 to 45.
But he has been actively meddling about with your election. I mean, that can't please you as a former CIA.
I don't know how clear that is. He has certainly,
more than the social
they've
network.
certainly been getting into some of the information security issues. But I think
there are 17 different security agencies in the world that have charted precisely what's going on, and a lot of it is involving
well,
Mr.
that's
Putin.
sort of listing all the American agencies, probably
Sure.
the Director of National Intelligence.
Yes, and they're all very concerned, but you don't seem to be.
Well, I'm concerned. I just don't like making charges unless I have the facts, and I don't have the facts
But
on
as
this one
former
yet.
CIA director and advisor to Mr. Trump, surely the first thing you do would be to go off to the facts. I mean, you know there's been an atmosphere about
Delighted
Russia
to do
throughout
that
this
if I
campaign.
had time, but I was in the Near East working on energy issues, and I don't know. But we'll see as time goes on. That'll become clearer. My hunch is the Russians are rather deeply involved.
Well, now, you are a patriot, and Mr. Trump has said some quite extraordinary things, amongst them, for example, very recently, concerning the attack on Mosul, in which a number of American soldiers are involved, a number of American generals are directing it, and he's called them losers. That, for somebody who's trying to become the the commander-in-chief of the entire services.
He has a shtick in his public pronouncements that's not one that I would identify with, but
if Bill Clinton had said that when you were in the White House for the CIA, you would have been scandalized.
Well, in intelligence, it takes a great deal to scandalize you, and it's not your own government that does so. You're looking toward other governments or terrorist groups outside. We do no assessment of what's going on in the United States. That would not be.
No, but I'm asking you as a patriot, I mean, do you feel comfortable about the idea of the next president of the United States, supposing he becomes so, traducing the military in that way?
I didn't like that expression.
Did you tell him?
I haven't seen him since then. But I think it's a minor point. I think it's a minor point. I think the key thing is whether or not he would make sounder decisions than Hillary Clinton under the circumstances of the situations they're likely to be in. And I have no question about that at all.
Well, given that he hasn't even revealed his tax return and a great number of other issues, surely that comparison isn't that good.
I think it's an excellent comparison. She has done the worst job of protecting classified information that any senior U.S. government official has ever done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Woolsey. It's very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Now, for a look at some of tonight's other issues involving Latinos, because they are the swing factor when it comes to this election. We're going now to Phoenix, to Arizona for Ruben Gallego. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. Can I ask you specifically about the Latino issue? I mean, they are a very structural element of this year's vote. How do you read that vote?
Well, it's very simple. Latino community is going to come out and protect American values. Many of them are either multi-generational Americans, they're very patriotic, have served their country, or they're new immigrants to this country, have become citizens, and they see Donald Trump as a threat to American democracy. This man spews nothing but hate and division, which goes against all what we understand as the values of America.
And do they, I mean, some people are saying that, for example, the Cubans are tending to go towards Trump. Right, and some people are saying they're tending to go towards Trump, and other, and that the Latinos are tending to go for Hillary. Is that an accurate division?
Could be, although I think this year it may not be the case. I think there may be an evenly split with Cuban Americans voting both equally for Hillary and for Trump. And at the same time, younger Cubans are going to be voting with Secretary Clinton. And Florida also has a very interesting mix of other Latinos from Central America, South America, and a growing Puerto Rican population, which is what's tilting, I think, the early vote towards Secretary Clinton. And across the country, Latinos are going to overwhelmingly vote for Secretary Clinton over Donald Trump.
Now, of course, the big problem for Hillary Clinton was that this dark shadow that was cast by the whole FBI inquiry into her emails came at a pivotal 9 days in this campaign. How do you think that has affected the vote in your state?
Well, I don't think it's affected much with the Latino community. The Latino community knew that this was just a distraction from day one. It was a partisan witch hunt conducted by Republicans in the House. And when Director Comey acted inappropriately, mind you, and interfered in a political election, they saw right through that. I can't really speak for other demographics, but certainly was very untoward the fact that the FBI got involved in how they did. However, the election will still be close here in Arizona because we've worked harder. The Latino community is coming out. And really, Donald Trump is probably the most dangerous, racist, and misogynistic candidate that we've ever had in modern time run for president. And I think the best of America is going to come out to stop the worst of America.
Now, there will be people who, when history comes to be written, will say, hang on a minute, this was a terrible choice between a woman who was suspected of all sorts of misdoings with her email server and a man who has been cast by many as a bully.
Well, I think, first of all, that's just a really bad diagnosis. One, it's not that he's a bully, it's that he is quite ignorant on the Constitution of the United States, the rights that we reserve for individual human beings, the fact he doesn't understand anything about war, the fact he jokes about nuclear holocausts, tells you he's not ready to be president, versus somebody who had very bad email policy, something that she readily admits. So your choices are basically someone who doesn't know how to use emails and email policy correctly, or someone who threatens nuclear war, who does not know how to control his temperament, who basically will lose his handle just because somebody insults him personally and is not ready for prime time. So it's not even a close comparison. We have a Secretary of State, former U.S. Senator, former First Lady, versus a 6-time bankrupted billionaire who has the temperament of a 13-year-old and potentially will have the chance to launch nuclear weapons without any check. So there is a big difference.
Congressman, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you. Many Americans and beyond are sick and tired of this bruising race. The marathon campaign has stretched 19 months since way back when the first presidential hopefuls began making their moves to run. That's not unusual. What has set this cycle apart, this bid for the White House, is the unprecedented way in which, well, unprecedented U.S. history is the tone driven down by reality television star Donald Trump, whose every lie, slur and rant has taken American political discourse to a new low, and his tone has changed Hillary's tone as well. Our U.S. correspondent Kylie Morris has been on the campaign trail since day one. This is her reflection.
Few imagined when this started how Donald Trump's campaign for the presidency would place into shock, even violate, the American body politic.
The American dream is dead.
With every prejudicial slur and provocation, Trump hijacked the way America talks about itself and trashed its norms.
And I hope you'll join me on this journey.
He infected Hillary Clinton's campaign as well.
Because when families are strong, America is strong.
Measure the sheer optimism of the video that launched her bid for the presidency last year with the bleak remix of Trump she released last weekend.
When Mexico sends its people, they're bringing drugs, they're rapists. I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Get him out of here!
Donald Trump has no boundaries, has no sort of natural filter. And in the American political environment, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Shocking.
Call your opponent Crooked Hillary often enough, and it's logical to see a mock detention outside a campaign stop of a pretend Hillary in a Guantanamo jumpsuit. His supporters have rallied to what Trump calls his rejection of political correctness, no matter who it hurts.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
Frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time, what I say is what I say.
When Hillary Clinton tried to shrug off political correctness, it worked against her. Remember her comments about the deplorable followers of Donald Trump?
The racist, sexist, homophobic.
She had to apologize. She learnt when he goes low, she can't.
He's not a war hero.
From mocking war heroes like John McCain.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
To disabled journalists.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
The more he enabled hatred and prejudice, the higher his star rose.
This is a strange election, isn't it?
The king of reality TV was becoming kingpin in the Republican presidential contest. And suddenly it was all carry on up the White House.
Have you seen his hands? They're like this.
And the other candidates played along.
And you know what they say about men with small hands?
He referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it. All right. Okay.
But there's lewd for laughs, and then there's this kind of lewd.
I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her.
Trump tried to shrug off his hot mic comments recorded 10 years ago as locker room talk, but it felt that this new low meant we'd hit peak Trump.
Grab him by the you can do anything.
And a candidate favoured for being candid had revealed too much, seemingly bragging about sexual assault in X-rated crotch-grabbing detail, although he didn't use the word crotch.
And I think that every single Republican is going to have to answer the question, what did you do the day you saw the tape of this man boasting about grabbing a woman's period?
Okay. All right.
Will you please stop saying that word? My daughter is listening.
Don't tell me you're offended when I say but you're not offended when Donald Trump
Exactly.
It felt desperate rather than provocative when days later at the second presidential debate, Trump paraded 3 women into the venue, all of whom had accused Bill Clinton of sexual abuse. In the end, it was Michelle Obama, not Hillary Clinton, whose voice cut through and called out Trump.
A 6-year-old knows that this is not how adults behave. This is not how decent human beings behave.
If Donald Trump manages to drain the swamp of Washington, as he insists he will, the Jefferson Memorial will be left high and dry. Dedicated to one of the founding fathers of the United States, its principles are on display carved into marble.
given this wrecking ball of a candidate who turns those words that we read at the monuments into almost a mockery. The soul of the nation and who we are as a nation is at stake.
When the nation votes tomorrow, it will not only decide its president, but also whether this is a permanent retreat from civility, a calcifying of the distance between its citizens and of America from the rest of the world, when words like these become beautiful but hollow relics.
We're joined now by the British writer and New York Magazine's contributing editor Andrew Sullivan, a political conservative but social liberal who last week wrote about America and the abyss. He is desperately urging people here not to vote for Trump because he says their future depends on it. You've actually even described him as a proto-fascist. I don't think any of us quite dare go that far. But what defends that particular claim?
Well, I would say simply the following, that he has declared that he will only abide by the election results if he wins. He is campaigning to jail his political opponent if he wins. He is proposing a platform to round up several million people in this country and forcibly deport them. He has called an entire American minority religion a potential fifth column in the United States, and he has shown absolutely no respect for core liberal democratic norms or institutions in this entire process. And if, you know, the question is whether you take him at his word or whether you take it from his supporters that he doesn't mean any of this, that he's just...
Isn't that the problem? We've been watching a reality television show and we're not sure whether it is actually a political campaign or whether he just wants to boost himself.
Yes, and if what tomorrow is an actual election or a season finale in which some new surprise will emerge and in which we do not even know if he will accept the results if he loses. And you know, it's one thing when you're talking about that as a reality TV star, but when you're actually potentially the head of a government with the most powerful military in the world, and he doesn't seem to have any understanding that his words mean more power, have more power to them if he's in power than if he's just a person.
What does it say about the American system, which we rather worship? A written constitution, it's got everything going for it, but somehow this chap has come barging through the whole process.
It shows you how fragile it actually is, how people take it for granted, how these core democratic principles need to be supported at every moment. And look, there is another issue here, which is that America is a majority white country on the verge of becoming a majority non-white country. The idea that we get through this passage and transition without some massive reaction of some sort is unlikely. And what we're about to see is what happens.
That leaves you with Mrs. Clinton.
It does. One of the worst candidates in recent times, a person terribly compromised. Absolutely. Not because I like her. I mean, you can look at my record. I have been nothing but a critic of the Clintons for years. But that's not what this is about. It's about saving the system. It's about someone who is bad within the normal parameters of being bad in a democratic republic.
But the Republicans will go after her. They'll probably have the Congress, and the thing will be gridlocked, and there could be real trouble.
And that is the appeal of the tyrant, the strongman. I mean, the appeal is they have gridlocked this place for so long. Parliamentary institutions, democratic institutions are thoroughly untrusted, just as they were in the 30s in many places. And his appeal is, I will break through all of this. I alone can fix it. I will be the representative of the people.
What will it say about the possibly 50 million people who will vote for him?
It says that they want a strong man, they're tired of democracy, they want some action and some tough talk, exactly as they did in other times in history. And I believe in looking at history and remembering it. And I think, but also they're slightly sleepwalking through this. They don't see this man, he's actually unstable. He's actually capable, he's never backed down. He doesn't know how to climb down.
Do you think it's going to happen?
My gut tells me it may well happen tomorrow.
What about Brexit? Doesn't that tell you about how votes go?
It does, and my feeling is that we are on the verge of something quite catastrophic if we're not careful. Look, the polling will tell you she's probably going to win. My instincts tell me we don't know.
Andrew Sullivan, thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's all about that house behind here, the White House, bathed in glorious autumn sunshine. But will it be shining in Trump gold or redecorated by the Clintons for the second time? But in a political sense, it's become almost possible to lose sight of the reality that, if elected, Mrs. Clinton will become America's first woman president. So ferocious is the campaign, both to Democrats and indeed to embarrass her over her email server from the Republican side. Is her gender and this historic moment affecting the way women are voting? Joining me now are Alice Butler-Short from the Women for Trump and strategist for the Democrats, Tory Brown. Let me start with you, Alice.
Yes.
Do you think the fact that she is a woman affects the vote?
With some women, but certainly not with Republican women, because we feel that you definitely do not vote on the basis of gender.
And what about your picture of this? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Hillary's gender matters both for people voting for her and against her.
But how do you know that?
Well, polling tells us that. We see that on the ground at rallies. We see a huge number of women getting motivated, giving money, knocking on doors. This has been GOTV weekend. The Hillary campaign has seen record-breaking numbers of volunteers, and a lot of those are women, and they're really excited to elect the first woman president.
So for the women for Trump, the whole question of gender is knout.
No, well, I founded Virginia Women for Trump, and we have thousands of women all over the state absolutely energized and really excited about
never put off by the awful things he's done to women and the awful things he's said to women?
We don't believe that he's done anything, but we do
all
believe...
those women who say he has are just liars.
I will just not get into that. What we see is a man who has a vision for this country, who's going to bring this country back to where we would like to see it, who's going to make us safe again, who's going to make us strong again. And you might be surprised.
Give me the vision, because I haven't seen any. I've been around the country and I've never yet seen a policy statement or anything.
Have you gone on his website?
Well, I've been to listen to him.
Okay, well...
And it's all about abuse. He says
no,
how
it's
much
not
he
all
hates
about it. No.
Well, it was the one I went to in
then
Charlotte.
I think your ears are closed and the scales over your eyes. This man is a wonderful man. He's a brilliant man. He's a strong man with a compassionate heart. And that's what reaches out. Strong women like a strong man. We see and believe what he can do for his country.
At no point in the campaign has either smiled or shown any compassion of any description.
Well, I have a picture of him with me smiling, and at the last rally I was at in
Smile, Donald, I'm with
Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania 2 nights ago, there was huge compassion. He actually had the parents of a young man who was 19 years old, obsessed with Trump, and he had them come on stage and talk about their son. I have seen his compassion over and over again.
Well, of course, the great tragedy is that Mrs. Clinton has been so badly winged that, I mean, she has not been able to launch the attacks on Mr. Trump that she should have done.
Well, I think that she saw what was the most ridiculous and sort of megalomaniac of a candidate that we've seen in this American country, and that absolutely had to change her play. Her website is also littered with policy proposals that she really wanted to talk about, but because of the tone that Donald Trump set in this campaign, it became about personalities, it became about who was racist and xenophobic.
But the problem is that she started out compromised, even against any candidate.
She started against any... Well, I think that was going to happen to any Democrat. Obama, you could say, was compromised in the primaries and in the election, and so this is what the Republican Party does. They work to tear down Democrats. Women, men, black, white, it doesn't really matter to them. They see us as our fundamental opposition instead of another party that comes together to work together for our country.
Why don't young women like Hillary?
There are some young women that look at her policy proposals and disagree. There are some young women that are Republican and prefer Republican policies, and there are some women that absolutely hold their own misogyny and they interpret female leaders differently. We've seen this in studies and data that people they look at female leaders differently.
One very big problem really is that Mr. Trump simply hasn't transcended the TV reality star that he was. He was wonderful on television, very funny because he was so rude, but you can't do that in campaigning for the White House.
Well,
I mean, he's traduced your men in the field of war. He has actually said losers. That's generals.
You're taking something totally out of context. There is no one who is more...
He gave the context.
There is no one who is more supportive.
There is a battle going on for Mosul, and they're messing it up, and they're losers.
No. But I'm not going to get into what he meant. I could, but we don't have the time here. But I will tell you that there is no one who is more supportive of the military. My husband is a retired colonel. My son is an active duty colonel. I know all about the military and what they think, and they support Mr. Trump.
A last quick one, and that really is the whole question of whether this wonderful moment that a woman might become president of the United States, which should be a great moment for celebration, has really been totally overshadowed by the awful quality of this thing.
Well, I think that Hillary Clinton at the beginning didn't want to make her gender a focal point of the campaign, and so maybe they're happy that this isn't like the, the horns going off for a female leader.
Well, thank you both very warmly.